Okay, so I wanted to talk about something since it is 9/11, the 19th anniversary of the September 11th attacks in 2001. I wasn't here. I was in South Africa, where at the time when the news coverage started, it was like 3 o'clock. So I think it's a 6 hour difference between here and there. And this was shortly after our lunch. I was in boarding school, so we all went to lunch, and then we came back to our rec room, and we were seeing what happened, right? And the thing about it is that I don't know if Americans quite understand this, but around the world at that time, America was like this big brother type of country, and it was a shock to see
Your
the,
big brother get knocked out.
yeah, exactly, getting attacked, right? And everyone was like on edge, like, is what's going on? Like, is a war about to start? And all this, it seemed like a movie, right? And it was it was tragic, and everyone was on America's side for like the weeks that followed, right?
I
Um,
might even say years.
yeah, yeah. Um, 2000, 2,977 people died from those attacks. And I think 6,000 plus people were injured, right? I bring that up because what happened with 9/11 is that you had like a strong sense of unity across the country, across the world even. Um, and then you had a case where people wanted revenge, right? Because that's a uniquely American thing where someone has to be accountable for something. And luckily, there was someone that was accountable. It's Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. They came out, they took responsibility for it. So we had a villain, we had someone to point at. And then they went to Afghanistan to look for him. They lost his trail. And they kind of started twiddling their thumbs. They stayed in Afghanistan for, are they still in there or are they withdrawn? Uh,
I don't think Obama took him out.
yeah, I think they're still in there, right? So they stayed in Afghanistan. And then in 2003, I remember this vividly because we were actually shown videos of the UN, um, the UN speeches by Colin Powell and company, in which America was trying to tell the UN that they believe Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. They put it up for a vote in the Senate, and every senator knew that, look, if we vote against this, that's probably our reelection. Very few senators, Bernie Sanders, as I know you'd like to bring up, actually voted against it. But a lot of them, in less sure, races, they were like, if I vote against this,
Hillary Clinton.
that's me. Hillary Clinton, senator from New York, which was attacked, she's like, if I vote against this, I'm going to lose my reelection. So they
Didn't Biden vote for him? Biden vote for it too, right?
I
Because
think so. I think so. Yeah.
I think they
So
did it.
they basically got blanket confirmation from Senate to go and do this war,
Yeah.
right? And then they went into Iraq. Now, since then, Iraq, I don't know the exact death toll because it keeps differing, but let me put it to you this way. I said 2,977 people died on 9/11. Iraq has basically had a 9/11 every 3 months since we got into Iraq. They've lost about 3,000 people every 3 months since we got in there. This was the most egregious show of asymmetric retaliation that the world has ever seen. America was like, we get punched, we're gonna punch back 10 times as hard. And that's what happened. And
Yep. Nearly quoting George Bush too.
oh yeah, I think he might have said something like that. Yeah. And and I bring this up because I feel like 9/11, I bring it up because I saw a lot of posts on Facebook. 9/11 has become this thing where I fear that America is going to get to a point of whitewashing the history of what happened and and kind of washing over the atrocities that followed as where they used 9/11 as a prelude to that, right? They use it to as the excuse for going into Iraq that had nothing to do with 9/11, and we're still there. All these years later. I think Trump announced that they're drawing down the troops to like 3,000 troops. We're still there 19 years later, 17 years later. And it's like people should not let this gloss over, like we've glossed over atrocities against Native American people, like we've glossed over atrocities against Black people and other marginalized groups across the world. But anyway, sorry, soapbox. Did you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say that I definitely agree with you about the whitewashing, because it's funny, because there's a sports guy. He's a funny guy on the radio, but on Twitter he seems to be a bit of a, I don't know, not a douche, but he perplexes me, right? Because he says some stuff that is just so insightful, and then he says some stuff that I'm like, am I really following a freaking Trump voter? But because he admitted he voted for Trump, he was like, oh, I was fooled. I thought he was going to fix everything. I was like, what was he going to fix? The economy that wasn't in a recession. But anyway, there is that, because what's funny is we got all this stuff going on, BLM. We're going to talk about next about how, or after we talk about Bob Woodward, we're going to talk about, NFL coming back, and how there was a call for unity with the backdrop. One of the biggest backdrops was the civil unrest. Like, it's funny, the NFL decided, instead of, hey, trying to hide all this stuff, why don't we just put it at the forefront and, actually, raise awareness to what 80% of our workforce believes in, but it's like every single time, because I don't know if you saw this, I shared where they basically said that Donald Trump ended certain anti-racist tactics, I think, in some parts of the government.
Yeah, the anti-discrimination training.
Because he felt it divided and felt it was unpatriotic.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know
if I've patriotic to him.
I don't know if I've talked about this on this show or if we just talked about it off camera. I don't get people who call you racist for pointing out racism, right? Like, so the mere fact that I'm saying, hey, if you I can't even think of something racist off the top of my head, but if you do this racist thing, that is an example of you being racist. The mere fact of me doing that makes me a racist. The mere fact of me pointing out something that you should acknowledge.
There was you saw that comment, because you commented on it after I commented, where a guy was like, y'all keep shoving this down our faces. It's going to divide the country and make everybody go towards Trump. And I'm like, so you're admitting that you're going to vote for Trump because people are talking about civil rights. They're talking about human rights. They're talking about being treated fairly. So you're basically saying that the Republicans is the party of division. Like, and it was an excellent self-own, but the problem, but going back to the September 11th thing where you were talking about, it just seems like they kind of I feel like they still use September 11th to push this whole certain agendas, because one, somebody asked on Twitter today, and I commented, do you think George Bush, basically, was 9/11 an inside job? I don't believe in that. I don't believe it was an inside job, not to the extent of they planned it.
Mm-hmm.
It was, they knew about it, because you were given a freaking memo that said, hey, Osama bin Laden's going to fly planes into the Twin Towers. You've given enough notification about it where you're able to make countermeasures.
One thing I do want to say about that, before you go on, I didn't mean to cut you off. One thing I do want to say is, at least from what they've said, right? And I'm not going to hold them up as like the bastions of honesty and truth, which both mean the same thing. But from what they've said, yes, they got these memos, but they get memos all the time about active threats and maybe this one was a little more believable than other memos, but it's something that was overlooked because they get such memos all the time. So I can almost kind of, give them a pass.
All right.
That, but yeah.
So if you wanna consider that part of my argument moot, then fine. Because I'll say this. Even if he didn't know about it. First of all, I hate when people try to say, we talked about this in pre-production, right? Where they're like, oh, George Bush kept us safe after 9/11. I was like, yeah, but he didn't keep us safe during 9/11. That's the important part. You can't tell me, look, I'm a shitty dad, right? I ignore my kid, but I got him out of the pool while he was drowning. I still was the reason why he fell into the pool and almost died. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that doesn't stop me. Be like, oh, he's a great dad because he took him out of the water and he's never let him go back in the pool.
Yeah, or no. I mean, for a more morbid comparison, let's say you had 6 kids and one of them drowned, and 10 years later you'd be like, well, none of the other 5 have drowned since,
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you let's go. Damn, you're dark. But yeah. Well,
yeah, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Because but it's they still use it. So he used the 9/11 to push what he wanted because there was a report that said that George Bush told one of his advisors or one of his peoples, find a way to make this point back to Saddam Hussein. No terrorist on 9/11 was Iraqi. The majority were Saudi Arabia, who were supposed to be I guess they're an ally because we owe them a lot of money or something like that.
Money, they buy weapons. But
yeah. What's the kingdom, by the way? And that kind of gives you a good. Have you ever seen the kingdom? Jamie Foxx.
If I have, it was a while back, but
they did an introduction on they did like the opening credits. They did like a quick history rundown of Saudi Arabia and the what's it called, and the U.S. relations. So that's something that you could definitely look at and kind of gives you an idea why we would not look at them, even though.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say is Al Qaeda and Saddam Hussein famously hated each other. Right, so
they didn't like him because he wasn't a Bible thumping Muslim. He liked women. He liked liquor. He was a dictator. I'm not saying that he wasn't. We're not saying he wasn't a dictator. That he wasn't a horrible person who created genocide or whatever. But we didn't use that. We used weapons of mass destruction as an excuse, even though they're really. I think they've said that there was really never any real proof.
Yeah, no, they haven't found any.
No, not that they haven't found any, but even when they went to go look for weapons of mass destruction, even then they really had no proof that there was a possibility.
Yeah, the UN sent inspectors prior to the US going in, and the UN was like, we didn't find anything. And then the US is like, well, our satellites see something. We're going regardless of what you guys say. The whole idea that Saddam could have had something to do with 9/11 is kind of the same also dark thing that spawned off of 9/11, which is that if you're Muslim or if you're even just brown, you are a part of why we got attacked. It doesn't matter whether you're Shiite Muslim or Sunni or whatever. You're Muslim, you're part of the problem. And that's another part that I don't want to get whitewashed in history's retelling of 9/11.
Before we go into that, I think I know what you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about the fact that people want to talk about there was I forget who it is. He's a famous liberal, and I don't know if you read about his Twitter. Where I'll try to remember his name later and do it in correction. He talked about after September 11th, the way that America acted was amazing. The unity, that there was no real backlash to anybody within America. It's basically talking about that. And then people, and the Muslim was like, I got called a terrorist at 8 years old.
Wait. I didn't see this at all. Like,
I'm sure you. Oh, then you didn't see it, so I gotta find it now. Damn it! No, I gotta.
But no, I'm speaking anecdotally from friends of mine who are either Muslim or Indian. So they're not. So they're Indian, non-Muslim, but they are brown. So they presented as Muslim, to people just from looking, and they would call them, sand N-word, or
Yeah.
they'll call them like really terrible names and stuff. And 9/11 gave them cover to say that, because you're basically the villain now, even though a lot of these people they were talking to were Americans. A lot of them were just as shocked by what happened. So there's a lot of whitewashing that could take place because of 9/11, and I fear that that's where we're headed. Um,
And it's not. And actually, what somebody said is true. It wasn't Muslims who did it. It was terrorists.
yeah.
It was the same way. I mean, I'm not gonna go there, but I was gonna say, like, what was the one thing that the Christians did in Spain where they went and brutalized a bunch of people? The Crusades.
Yeah.
But they were.
No, but those were Christians that did that.
Yeah.
They were.
That's a horrible example on my part.
It was a religious thing that they did. No, it's like saying that Christians. Okay. Christians killed. 21.
Oklahoma City bombing.
What about it?
His was Christian. His was anti-abortion. That's the reason why he did the Oklahoma City bombing.
Okay.
He was doing it because he believed in that. He said the main reason was for him to do it as anti-abortion because of Christian theology.
So that's like blaming that on all Christians.
Exactly.
Because one guy was crazy enough to act out violently on it. So anyway, I think we've talked to death about it. I remember 9/11, 2001. It was a very sad moment for all of us, even those of us that weren't here in the U.S. But I don't want us to get to a point where we start glossing over and forgetting all the bad stuff we did as a result in retaliation, asymmetric retaliation. So.
And the guy that I was talking about, if I'm not mistaken, was Paul Krugman.
Oh, okay. Oh, he said that?
He said something around the line.
Krugman. Expected better from him.
I'll make sure to look it up to so it's not even hard to remember now how the large terrorist attack loomed in our national psyche. After all, in death toll, COVID-19 is already the equivalent of 69/11. Hold on. Overall, Americans took 9/11 pretty calmly. Notably, there wasn't a mass outbreak of anti-Muslim sentiment and violence, which could have too easily happened. But literally, I think it was like 2 days or a day that a sheik who aren't Muslim was killed in retaliation in 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
The Sheiks are the ones with the Indian fellows that wear the right.
Sikhs, Sikh.
Yeah, I think it's
Sikh, because the sheik is a like a prince.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think they're Muslim. So yeah, but Sikh is what you think.
Yeah. So anyways, man, yeah. So definitely, I get what you're saying, because today I really didn't want to post anything that was anti, might be seen as anti this, just because I'm like, all right, people are gonna be like, not on all days on this, the day of our, I don't want it to be turned into the godmother.
Yeah, I did. I didn't post anything about 9/11 specifically for a similar reason, but also I just hate I hate the canonization of an event and just blindly ignoring everything around it, everything that followed, right? Because the stuff that followed was bad.
Yeah. It was bad. And the thing is, though, but at the same time, it's just, when I get out, I want to think about out 9/11 is Jon Stewart getting the 9/11 victims that got inhaled and had to deal with the issues from the towers falling.
Yes.
We need to talk about that. We need to talk about how he had to go to Congress and we got attacked. So many Americans died that day. And then we left a lot of them out to dry, a lot of first responders out to dry who ended up getting health issues because of the issues that were dealt with, all the inhalation from the building smoke and the smoke from the airplane. We left them out to dry and said, you're on your own. like as a country.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that because we weren't perfect.
If you can give big companies tax breaks, you can give those guys money. You can.
And this whole unity after 9/11, we really need to think about, are we really united? Because at the same time that we're talking about never forget, and on that day we were all Americans, that's what, there's still Americans getting killed on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And their killers are wearing they're wearing a blue badge, and that kind of leads into our next conversation real fast. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't, like you said, let's not whitewash it. We need to really think about, what does 9/11 really mean to us as Americans? What does it really mean to us? And what does it mean to us as a country? And how can we actually keep learning from it? Because we need to learn from it.
Yeah.
So